This episode of GatherGeeks is sponsored by Leo Events. The impact of live events is undeniable, but for now, the destination is digital. While Leo Events can plan and produce virtual events alongside any credible platform provider, the agency developed an exclusive proprietary platform that is proven, customizable, and ready to deploy. Learn more at leoevents.com.
Okay, so we're gonna probably add.
Welcome to GatherGeeks, a podcast by BizBash, the place where people passionate about meetings and events come together. Here's your host, BizBash chairman and founder, David Adler.
Today, our guest is Vince Thompson, the chair, founder, and CEO of Melt, a sports marketing and event agency located in Atlanta. Vince, who founded the company, has been representing Coca-Cola and many other household brands since the firm started over 20 years ago. Today, though, he's not going to talk just about marketing alone, but about his real passion. He's really into training the next generation of marketers and event organizers in this unique project that's called Melt U. The program has grown from a small in-office summer program to this year, forced to pivot to digital, and it has enabled him to really scale the program. What I have found by talking to Vince today is that while the young people have a great practical real-life experience, the real benefit is to his team and his clients, who are forced by listening to these great students to be on the latest trends and insights due to the talents that are fresh and authentic. And so it is definitely, as they say, a win-win. And Vince wants more entrepreneurs to take this approach and audition their own teams by getting involved in education early on. So let's take a listen. So Vince, you and I have been friends for a long time. You run one of the best sports and events agency in the country, out of Atlanta. And you have been one of the leaders in training the next generation. Tell us a little bit about the elevator pitch on the agency, and then the things that you're doing in the summer that I participated in. So I'm here as an advocate for what you're doing because I think other people should hear about it and do the same thing.
Thank you, David. Always a pleasure. You've been so kind to me. Basically, Melt is a full-service marketing agency, but we focus on the areas of sports, entertainment, and culinary. We've been fortunate to represent the Coca-Cola company for 20 years in managing all of their sports and event sponsorships and work with them on about 1,000 events per year. Obviously, the pandemic hit. We had to pivot. But my labor of love has always been Melt University, David, based on my experience working my way through Auburn University in sports publicity. The campus is the ultimate professional lab. Every summer we'd have about 40 great kids, but I always had the desire to share it outside the walls of our agency. And when COVID hit, we said, these kids were calling up saying, "Hey, please help us." We pivoted virtually. We have so far called all of my industry friends like yourself. We've hosted over 50 podcasts with leaders, educating our kids on various career opportunities and enlightening them, inspiring them, connecting them. I've got a new book out called Build Brand You, which is every student should treat themselves now as their own personal brand as they package themselves up to market themselves in a post-COVID brutal nuclear winter job market. And so we're going to sustain this year round. We'll have over 150 podcasts before it's over. The book's out in November. Video lecture series from the masters. We'll probably have to have you in to really, really teach and train one sort of like master class, a weekly newsletter. And it's very inspiring. Labor of Love. We've got over 1,000 kids in it, and the testimonials have been amazing.
So go through the pre-COVID world. When did you start this? What did it look like? You had an agency like everybody else.
Right.
But you decided to really invest in next gen training for people. And also it seems like it's the best hiring thing you can ever create.
Well, I wish I had told you there was a grand strategy behind it, but I really just did it as a labor of love. I grew up in very rural Alabama, went to Auburn to be a sports writer. My first guest lecturer was the head of sports publicity in my first journalism class. And he talked about, the sideline and the press box in their locker room. And I said, man, that's where I want to be. And so I went up and took that shot after class and said, I want to volunteer. And that afternoon, started a 4-year journey. Was published over 200 times by the time I had gotten out. Bo Jackson, Charles Barkley, amazing Rowdy Gaines, the Olympic swimmer, were my friends. And I made a commitment then, if I was ever in a position to influence the next generation of kids, I would do that. So over time, I would go back to college campuses and I would talk about career development. And if you can dream it, you can do it. And the campus is the ultimate professional lab. Kids don't understand that when they're around there. They're not necessarily being told that. And so so I just started going back and lecturing. And over time, these kids would come up to me after class and say, hey, I'd love to intern for you this summer. And I'm like, okay, it sounds great to me. And that was back in 2005. I started Melt in 2000, but this began in 2005. And over time, it dawned on me that a lot of really smart people and leaders like yourself were coming in and out of my office, who we all were where those kids were one day. So we all want to give back and help and inspire. And so I'd say, David, come talk to our kids, and we're going to take them on field trips to all the Coke-sponsored venues in Atlanta and let them write papers to go present to Coke on what Coke could do better to market their generation, because this is the most sophisticated generation of marketers alive. And
so go back a little bit on Melt You. So when I lectured there, there were like a bunch of kids, and it happens in the summer,
right?
And people have to apply to become a Melt University participant,
right?
How many people do you actually get, and what is the summer? What did the summer traditionally look like in the past?
Well, we usually get about 400 or 500 applications, because the word gets around that it's a really fun, and we only hire out of that pool as well, so it's very competitive, David. These job interview process now is somewhat of a useless exercise, particularly in the virtual environment. But you can fool anybody for a couple of job interviews, but you got them living with you. It's kind of like you marry how you date. You got them living with you for about 8 weeks. You can figure out very quick if they fit your culture and your culture fits them. And so the kids would come in. We get 400 or 500 applications. I would take them all if I could, but we got up to 40. And then over the summer, we would have about 50 speakers such as yourself come in and talk about your path and your obstacles and your opportunities in that order, because we tell the kids life's not linear. You're going to get thrown off the saddle, but here are the opportunities as David Adler sees them in the countryside from his perch, his industry perch. And so then I'm training them old-fashioned follow-up and relationship building. And I think you'll attest, you got a sack full of follow-up thank you notes when you would make a visit to Melt You. And even it was virtual this summer on the podcast, you're going to get a sack full of them as well if they can find you.
These are handwritten.
So I'm teaching like, hey, every interaction with David Adler and these leaders is an audition, and it's leading up to an outcome, which is why you invested 4 years of time and money at college to go get a job in our world. And now it's going to be even harder because more people are out of work in our industry. It's going to be a depressed entry-level job market because more experienced people are willing to take a less job for less salary to get in. And so then with Coca-Cola being our client, and they're always looking to and for the next generation of consumer to tell them what they need to be doing, because we all sit in our ivory towers and think that we know. So I would arrange it where Coke would set up these great field trips to the Georgia Dome and to the State Farm Arena and to the Turner Field and SunTrust and Truist Park with the Braves and the College Football Hall of Fame and the Aquarium. But they had to write a research paper on what Coke could do better to market to their generation through their sponsorship investments, whether it be live or in a virtual or in social environment. And then I would set it up as their capstone where they would go present to several major Coke executives on their ideas. So think of a young 21-year-old in college. They walk into the vaunted Coca-Cola Global Tower and make a pitch to the president of Coca-Cola at 21. And then we only hire out of that pool. But there's only 2 rules of how you get kicked out of Melt You, is that you don't write your thank you notes and you're caught drinking a Pepsi product. So those were the only 2. But I would tell you, it's been the most absolutely inspiring thing. So we didn't have a choice but to pivot virtually when this stuff hit, because the kids were crying out because all their internships away, all their summer jobs went away. And I said, hey, we roll the dice. Why not? And it's really been amazing.
So what does it look like? So what does it look like today? They're not coming to that office.
Correct.
They are. How do you know they're listening? How do you sort of keep? You're still sort of acquiring people not acquiring, but you're still trying to admitting them based on these 40 people, or how many people?
Well, no, I mean, what happened is once we decided to go virtual, we opened up the gates to every university that we had a relationship with, to every kid that had applied, because think about it, we were only accepting about 10% of the application. So we came back into every kid that applied, and then we've got great relationships with a lot of the career development departments at the universities, and we said, hey, we're going virtual with this. Here's what the program will be. If you want your kids to get some class credit, we'll work with you on that. And like I said, we had we have got 1,500 kids in the program right now, and it's ongoing. And let me tell you, the funny thing about the law of unintended consequences, I bet you we're going to be involved in 30 or 40 virtual career fairs already this fall, because the word had gotten back to the career developers at the university saying, hey, Melt's onto something, and they've got great people like David Adler who will be willing to participate. And so it really, in the Department of Silver Linings of our law of positive unintended consequences, we've been able to really impact and inspire this next generation of marketers. And my challenge to our industry and my comrades, colleagues, and competitors is that we've all been blessed, and we're all going to get to the other side of this. Our core business is impacted beyond belief, but let's put some good karma and some goodwill out in that universe. And frankly, David, it allowed to stay Melt relevant in a very positive way in the marketplace during this entire period of great unrest, where we're not sure what our industry is going to look like. So it was it was good for me.
What are the things that surprised you the most in the last 3 months, or in what you've learned from Melt U and in terms of your business career, and how it sort of interacts, because it all works together?
The main thing is that I think that everybody, in the spirit, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, is that first of all, we had to adopt some new tricks. And then secondly, ideas that I would bring to my clients and my prospects and executives that 6 months ago they would have tossed me out of their conference room and laughed at me. They're calling back saying, maybe that's not such a bad idea now. So it's almost been like an Etch-a-Sketch for the mindset of our industry and the people we're serving within the industry. And so it's actually, to me, been very positive. And then we're translating from a Melt U perspective, we're translating what these students are telling us. And they're coming back saying, hey, look, we want to be paid virtual ambassadors. We want to be paid. If you can help us get, gigs with Coca-Cola or Hershey's or whoever it is, we'll do virtual ambassador, word of mouth, social media. We're back on campus. And so it's evolving into a great new business line: polling, research, surveys, testing, focus groups that we can provide to our clients. So that was, like I said, another silver lining in the process.
Is there anything that you can share in terms of like one kick-ass idea that these guys rejected, and then now thinking, oh my God, that's brilliant?
Well, there's two or three things. One is I had been pitching virtual tailgating to my clients for a long time. I'm like, a lot of people they may come to Auburn, but they're not going into the game. So let's figure out new ways. Let's put big screens up. Let's let people have picnics and, all those kind of things. And so they'd go, no. We've got a set standard of tailgating, and we go in the stadium and you get your Coca-Cola and go on. So now virtual tailgating has come out of it. Or if David and Vince are going to get together and watch the game together, we'll get a tailgate in a kit delivered to our door from our local grocery store, and we'll put it on the grill and we'll mix, those types of things. And so that's been a great silver lining. We pitched a major CPG company recently whose packaged food product is very popular among college freshmen. And I've been trying to pitch pop-up stores in dorms across the country for years. And now all of a sudden they're like, hey, these kids are quarantined in their dorm. Let's figure out a home away from home. So the output or the outcome is that people are now willing and able to listen to crazy out of the box ideas but in the past they may have been playing not to lose within their company. Now they're going, we got to play to win. And if we don't play to win, we're going to lose. And so I think it's going to be a renaissance in our industry.
And now a quick word from our sponsor, Leo Events. Despite the disruption, the best brands carry on. And for now, the destination is digital. Driven by purpose, platform, and people, let the team at Leo Events deliver impactful, virtual moments for your audience. Visit leoevents.com today to discover Leo's virtual capabilities and read case studies from recent programs.
Go a little bit into, how we always complain, oh, those millennials, oh, those Gen Zs, Gen X, whatever it is.
Yeah.
What have you seen about the qualities of this generation that I consider myself the oldest millennial on the planet.
Yeah.
You are probably too.
Yeah.
How do you, what about what they're telling you and their attitude has changed the way you think about the world?
Well, David, one thing, and I think our colleagues and our peers would probably attest to this, is that I was beginning to have limited patience with the instant gratification nature of that generation. Everybody gets a trophy and a participation and a pat on the back, and we all know that's not reality. Life is hard. Life is a tumble cycle. But I would have these kids coming in, and in 2 or 3 months they'd want to be the CEO, or they would job hop 4 or 5 jobs in 2 or 3 years. And I'm like, you can't really ever really know what's going to sprout out of a job until you at least give it a year. But they benchmarking so fast, and so now I've seen a dose of reality and a dose of humility and creeping into it, going, wow, because they had not really been exposed at their age to the tumble cycle. And, now this was a heck of a way to get exposed to it, a gargantuan global pandemic where the set of expectations has been completely flipped upside down. So I think it's, long term, and I'm an old school guy, and I'm kind of a tough love guy, but I think long term it's going to be really, really good for the health of the professional health of this generation, based on what they're now going through. Even when they're in school, like having to fight through this new type of learning, and then even when they get out, because they're gonna, I tell them, in the old days it was a fishing analogy. You would have to make 100 casts to get 8 bites to land 2 fish. Now you're going to probably have to make 500 casts to get 8 bites to land 2 fish in this brutal job market. So, but the other side of it is they're becoming resilient. They're becoming more appreciative. I've heard many of them say, "Gosh, that's what my mother was trying to tell me," et cetera, et cetera. And now you're validating what she's telling. So I think there's a collective aha going on within that generation. This generation.
How about from our point of view as the sort of the mentors? That how do you recommend that we listen to this next generation? Because a lot of times we're so busy not paying attention to them. What about it makes them know that we're listening to them?
And I had this conversation with them all the time. And listen, I've had to work on it myself. Is that you've got to talk with and to them, not at them. And then the second thing is and I underestimated this, is that and I'm going to use these terms loosely, but mental health and anxiety is really a true, not necessarily a problem, but it's a challenge with this generation. And it dawned on me, because I'm like, man, my dad would have just swatted me and told me to get back on the saddle, and that would have been the end of that cathartic conversation. But now you truly have to listen to them, because their brains are wired completely different. How social media has shaped all of these, real or false, expectations and perceptions that they have. I think influencer is a totally dirty word, because anything you see on Instagram is just absolutely pretty much not true. And that sets a false standard for so many of these kids that is impossible to live up to. And so, but I'm seeing a lot of them sort of rebel and revolt against those things that they thought that were most important, and kind of moving back to what's really important now. And so, true to yourself, your friends, your colleagues. But the best advice to mentoring these kids now is listening more than we probably should have. Let them ask as many questions as possible, and then be very empathetic and sympathetic to what there is a malady out there about different than you and I were old school, and we just grinded and grinded and grinded. So it's a real thing.
How do you prevent, or how do you encourage the BS meter from going on from their point of view, and also the eye rolling and the BS meter, because they're making judgments about every day about people,
right?
And so when we don't listen, they don't tell us necessarily, but they know it,
right? Well, now, like I said, and by the way, I have a 20-year-old son at University of Georgia, and I went through the same experience with him because I was trying to apply some of the old school that my father had applied to me to him, and it wasn't working. And so I had to go look in the mirror, and I had to step back, and I said, hey, take a deep breath and listen to what he's trying to tell you. And then if he has alternate things that he wants to do or actions to remedy the things differently than you and I would do it, then don't sort of poo-poo him right away. And so I think that was a big aha. And then I took that lesson and that learning, and I started applying it to the other kids, because I made an assumption that most of these kids, whether they looked happy and successful or not, were going through similar, mental anxiety. And that was before this COVID hit. So listen more, take it more seriously. It is a challenge out there, but also on the Department of Silver Lining, I think a lot of the kids are, probably in the past would eye roll at me when I'd say, well, life's not linear and you're going to be on the tumble cycle. And you're going to get thrown off the saddle. I've heard from many of them saying, oh, so this is what you were talking about.
Exactly.
And I go, well, yeah, but I think they're more willing to listen now. I see a need in the marketplace for more mentoring and empathy and giving these kids a chance. And like I said, the feedback, because they're already very sophisticated. I mean, they can listen to their podcast and their earbuds when they're taking a jog on the campus and things of that nature. And then they'll write me back and say, thank you for enlightening me on this, that, or the other. And David, I think the other thing you're going to see is that you're going to see a lot of this generation kids challenging the traditional college 4-year undergraduate degree, particularly out of liberal arts and events and sports and things of that nature, because they're spending 4 years, $200,000 taking classes that don't apply to putting on a major 1,000 event person in the Lincoln Center. And so I think you're going to see an evolution and a revolution, and I also think you'll see how that will impact the future of our core industry going forward.
How do you think marketing and events will change, though? My sense is that when you sit in a brainstormer with these kids, or with anyone now, and we're throwing out these sort of cutesy marketing ideas, and they're like thinking that we're idiots.
Right.
What is marketing today? How has it changed at this moment?
Well, you hear that term authenticity, but it really is true. I think the other thing is that we don't need to, as an industry, stray away from the core fundamentals of what we do, which is events are emotional, connectivity, community, and sharing events. And so I think that we will see, once we get beyond COVID, pray that we do. I really think, particularly with this generation who thinks they're fearless anyway, I think that you will see a massive comeback in the live events, particularly in the food and the live music and obviously the sports. The demand is there, and I think it's only going to it's going to be a big pop, because people, you never know what you miss until it's gone. And but I think it's going to challenge us to really evolve into an acceleration of the sophistication of how people like you and I package and produce events. And we're going to have as consumers, we're going to have a certain expectation of how that's delivered, or we'll reject it out of hand. And that goes from, when we enter the gates, and the safety and the sanitation and the cashless exercise and those types of things. I mean, I don't think some of the core things will change, but I do think the expectations, and I'm dealing with it right now in the college athletic space. I could take you into the Mercedes Dome in Atlanta, and then I can take you down to Auburn, and it literally is about 10 to 15 years light year difference between the experience you and I have at Mercedes versus at Auburn. And so the question then becomes, if you have a limited amount of money because the job market's been so crazy and you do want to go to a live event, unless you have an emotional connection to Auburn, where are you going to go spend that dollar? And then the expectation of the experience and things of that nature. I mean, majority of college football games still don't serve beer. So I want you to stick that in your craw for a moment. So then you and I can go to Mercedes, and there's 500 taps in there of which craft beer to choose from. So I think there's going to be a positive awakening and reawakening and all the event and the sophistication and the delivery of the experience. It's going to be driven by these young kids and consumers.
So it's interesting. How do you? I'm a big believing that event organizers really need to be collaboration artists in a real good form. But you're in a brainstormer meeting. You're making a decision on a program now. Where is the decision making that, oh, that's it? Are you doing that anymore? Or how does the consensus build to know that this is the right thing?
Well, there's always been, to your point, a lot of collaboration, but there's like I said, there's a tend to being more openness of challenging how, the old adage, well, this is the way we've always done it.
Right.
That phrase will be banned forever from the English language because
Right.
There'll never be, this is the way we've always done it. I also think that you're collaborating in a virtual environment with your same clients who now are actually getting real-time input from their families who are surrounding them 24 hours a day, and their kids are at home and go, I've heard it before, like, Dad, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. Whereas if we were sitting in the room making that pitch, that would be the edict and you would go do it. Wow.
Yeah, right.
We're sitting there going, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. But when his or her son says, Dad, Mom, that's a stupid idea, they go, oh, okay, well, how would you do it?
The last question I have is, when you're sitting in your internal meetings to create a pitch, who is the final decision maker for the idea that's going to go to the next step?
Well, I mean, we've always run a fairly horizontal organization, and but so then I would think that now it's even more horizontal because we're like, hey, think through what your in-home or your social or your technology viewing and consumption experience is now, as opposed to what it was 6 months ago. And so I think there is a great sort of reawakening to, how events are consumed. Now, I don't think some of this long-term is sustainable. People aren't going to go to virtual concerts every time because there's nothing like seeing Mick Jagger or Elton John, or I'm dating myself, but whoever in that inspiration. So, and you can't replicate a virtual wine tasting or food festival or barbecue festival, things of that nature. But I do think it's going to force a reexamination, particularly in the food event space, how that food is prepared and consumed, and dealing with the inspectors and the insurance requirements and all those kind of things. But I think again, and by the way, this is all not a bad thing because maybe we should have been doing these things all along. And so I think it's going to be a really good thing. And David, you made a comment when we were doing our podcast, is that now more than ever, the event directors or event planners within major corporations and agencies are getting more of a voice in the seat at the table because we are truly on the front line of the focus group in which they're serving. So whether you're doing a virtual fundraising event for a healthcare organization or a virtual event for the 1,000 doctors and nurses of a healthcare organization, the consumption and the packaging of this is totally different. And to your point, I think it's going to be great for our industry long term from a respect perspective. Not, hey, this is the guy, the person that puts the flowers out on the table. No, that's just a piece of a gigantic mosaic or a jigsaw puzzle. So I think from a respect perspective, it's going to be amazing.
Okay, last comment from Vince Thompson. Optimistic about the future people coming into the industry? Yes, no?
I'm 1,000% optimistic. I'm an optimist by nature. I think that this has all forced us into really appreciating the finer things. I think it's forcing us to re-examine our entire approach to the industry. I think it's also given us a new and respectful seat at the table, and being so open to this new and next generation of event planners and event directors and managers and producers that I'm seeing coming out of these schools. I think it's going to be a renaissance.
Great. And I sincerely think that you are a totally role model to our industry in actually hosting this and creating Melt U. I think every organization should have this bench that's being created by the type of thing that you're doing. So thank you so much.
Well, listen, I think it's our commitment. I think it's our responsibility and obligation. And I just try to live by the credo, to much has been given, much is expected.
Great way to end. Thanks so much, Vince.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. We can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Player FM, Google Play, and Pocket Cast. Be sure to leave us a rating and review. It helps others discover the GatherGeeks podcast. We'd also love to hear from you. You can leave feedback on Twitter @GatherGeeks or leave us an email, gathergeeks@bizbash.com. We hope you'll join us again for the next episode of GatherGeeks. Until then, gather on.